allow me to introduce Nkateko Khoza from Ghana Investments. She'll explore how tourism, already contributing 15% of GDP in key African markets, can sustainably drive economic and community development. Nkateko, how are you this morning?
Hi, Matlodi. I'm very well, and yourself? It's so good to hear about how well the program has been going and how all the topics really speak to each other. So I'm very excited to be part of this engagement.
Thank you so much for joining us. I was just saying earlier on, I'm loving the green, I'm loving the South African flag in full solidarity of African CEO Impact and Sustainability Meeting. The floor is yours.
Thank you, ma'am. And thank you very much also for Sam Apatsa from the 67 CEO Foundation for reaching out to me and inviting me to this forum. So I'm very, very excited to be participating. Thank you for the opportunity. So my name is Nkateko Khoza. I am the CEO of Zana Investments. And Zana Investment is a family office that has various interests, one of which is tourism and another is private equity as well as agriculture. So I'll be speaking from the platform of one of our subsidiaries and one of the holding companies that we have under the investment office. It's a hospitality entity that we've been running since 2009. As a family, where we have 7 lodges in total. It's 8 lodges in total, so 7 in Mpumalanga and 1 in Gauteng. So we've been quite active in this tourism space. And before that, we had investment holdings in the 80s and 90s as a family office, as well as members of the family participating in hospitality. So it's truly a sector that we really, really believe in. So, from the standpoint of the lived experience of hospitality via Hoyo Hoyo Hotels and Resorts, I will share my experiences and what I would say is Africa's or South Africa's advantage point, and also to look at economic sustainability, because without the economic sustainability, we cannot move forward. We need to give back to the land that's given to us. So that's, from the standpoint in terms of the UN Sustainable Development Goals as well, to make sure that we've been blessed with this country. We've been blessed with the various green environments, the oceans, as well as the animals, and of course the good weather. So as a country, we are just very blessed, and we need to make sure that we use these blessings and what we've been given to create jobs, as well as to promote tourism and employment within the sector. In terms of the economic importance of tourism, we are aware that tourism contributes up to 8% of GDP in the direct and indirect format, which equals to 659 billion to South Africa. So it's quite a serious industry and a serious job creator. It forms 11.3% of total employment. So this is looking at the numbers as we have them now in 2025 and beyond. So a significant player and a significant contributor in the country. And we also have been able to establish that in South Africa alone, we've got just under 9 million international arrivals coming into the country on an ongoing basis. So really taking us back to pre-COVID levels and beyond, which is very, very exciting for the tourism industry. The recovery has been phenomenal and quite steady. And because of this industry, we're supporting 1.5 million jobs. So that's direct jobs. So if we go to indirect jobs and beyond, that's even more than that. So it is quite a prime industry that can be grown from strength to strength. And it is a major source of foreign exchange for the country. And I think we're all aware and have seen the visitors that have come in from our major source markets, which is the United Kingdom, Germany, USA, as well as China. So these markets are very, very important to us because they form the basis for the contribution to the GDP. And of course, tourism has a multiplier effect. So it's not only speaking to the tourism and hospitality industry, it multiplies and spills over very, very well into the retail space, where some people essentially even come into the country just for the shopping. I think most of you are aware of the Diamond Walk and other environments where people are just coming here just for the shopping. I think in Gauteng and Johannesburg alone, this is quite a big draw card, as well as in the other provinces. It also impacts agriculture because that's food security and food production. And we're making sure that the visitors that come here are able to enjoy what the agricultural space is able to provide to the economy as well as to the visitors. Transport. So transport, that would be people that are flying in, people that are driving in, people that are coming in via the waters. So the transport economy is also impacted and is contributed to by tourism, and of course construction, because we are constructing hotels, we're constructing tourist attractions, we are building on what we already have. I think a lot of development in Cape Town has been seen in the waterfront area. So construction is one area. And then I think in KZN, we've got the Club Med that's coming up. That's a construction project. So it really is a platform that adds very nicely. And, it's almost a collaborator and an aggregator of activity for the country. And more than anything, it contributes to the employment of youth and women. We always lament about the youth in South Africa that are unemployed. Tourism is that space that makes sure that the opportunities are there. It's up to the youth to just make sure that they're opening their eyes and they are alert to these opportunities and harnessing the entrepreneurial skills, and taking control of their training and development in the space in order to participate. So for myself, as someone who comes from a rural environment, I was born in Mpumalanga and Bushbuckridge in a place called Ekonok. I can tell you now that the development in those communities for the women and the youth, it's very visible, and one can really see how it benefits that space. So tourism, how does that drive the economic sustainability? I think you can see from the picture on the slide that even communities are able to benefit directly, where they can welcome visitors directly into their day-to-day spaces, of which tourists, it's a different experience for them. For someone who comes from a big city, to be hosted in an environment such as the one that's pictured here is a novelty and something that they will take back to their country and share. So it supports the development of communities as well as economy, stimulating the economy in those communities. It supports local and encourages entrepreneurship within those spaces where the tourism is taking place. And then it drives infrastructure investment. So you're looking at spaces where things like small airports are being developed in places where there otherwise wouldn't be any airport. A place like Palabora, a place like Skukuza, in the case of Mpumalanga, wouldn't have been developed, those small satellite airports, if it weren't for tourism. So we're making sure that tourists can really arrive straight into the environment where they want to be, and the infrastructure is there to make sure that's happening. So as soon as you create an airport, you need someone who will be able to shuttle those visitors from the airport to their hotel and to shuttle them around throughout their visit. So already that's driving the economy, and it promotes cultural preservation. So as I was mentioning, with the community that's pictured here, it's not a case of how do we make this look like Johannesburg. We don't have to do that. We can preserve our culture and share our culture. In a place like Mpumalanga, and another example from the lived experience that I'd like to share with you, we've got a Shangaan village where we've got a chief that lives in the Hiziview area with his children and his wives. His children go to school, the normal school environment. And what they've done there is created a tourism attraction where people can come in and interact with the village, where they welcome them in the same way that they welcome visitors many, many years ago, in terms of being able to share with them what they drink, what they eat, show them around, share with them how they lived back in the day, and really mimicking or, duplicating what was happening in those cultural villages back in the day and letting the tourists become part and parcel of that environment. Very, very informative, and also a space where, as you leave, there's a curio shop where they're able to share some of the curios and the crafts that are made by the community. So the cultural preservation is there. In our hotel in Mpumalanga, we've got a hotel called Angels View Graskop. What we've done is we made sure that within the hotel itself, we've incorporated elements of the Shangaan culture, which is the culture that we come from, where we've got even the lighting mimicking the Shangaan skirt, the Shibelani skirt. We call these the Shibelani lights. We've got some grottos that are, we call them luxury grottos, where the inside of those grottos is painted in the Shangaan culture to showcase the Shangaan culture in the area, as well as the Pedi culture. So we actually need to make sure that as we grow into the tourism space, we don't try to become urbanized. We need to take our cultures and we need to catalyze and expand on those and share that with the world, because that is a unique feature that you won't find anywhere else in the world. And that would be a speaking point for many of the tourists that come and share and experience South Africa with us. So in terms of inclusion and transformation, our government has been leading the way in terms of making sure that in instances where tourism is thriving, that there is programs and grants, as well as funding, debt funding, that is available via government incentives, where tourism players can apply and become supported in terms of growing the industry, and also growing Black small businesses and medium-sized businesses in the tourism space, environments that look at items such as the creation of uniforms for your guides and the hospitality service persons, where you can look at creating crafts and other economically active products that we can share with the world. So to grow those kind of environments, we are looking at people that are creating spas, where you can have your spa in the bush. That's a SMME grouping that's growing very well in the Kruger Park and other environments where the tourists are visiting. So the focus really is a lot on youth and women, but we must also say that the men are part of it, of course. But what we're trying to do is to make sure that we push other groupings that have not benefited in the past via these initiatives. So the government is doing all that they can through SA Tourism and other platforms. The DTI is doing work there. The IDC is doing work there. So these initiatives around inclusion, transforming and supporting Black business is very, very important, and it's happening on an ongoing basis. Us as a hospitality entity have also benefited from that, and I do feel that others as well are at liberty to apply and make sure that they get government involved. In Mpumalanga, we've got the MTPA, the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Authority, that is very, very supportive of tourism in that space. So the infrastructure investments, I think I've mentioned this, that things like airports, the roads, you find that the road that leads to these tourist attractions, it tends to be maintained more often than if the tourism wasn't there. So because of the generation that the municipality gets of revenues that they get, they're able to make sure that they take care of the roads, they expand on the roads. So the roads are benefiting from that. Utilities are benefiting for that, where we need to expand our utilities to make sure that we provide the support for our business environments. So it is quite a big driver of infrastructure and investment by the government, by municipalities. And it also fosters and drives public-private partnerships, where private entities are able to partner with government to build spaces that speak to boosting investment and destination management. I think a very big example in the Graskop area is where you've got the Graskop Gorge, where it's a natural environment that now has a big tourism attraction beyond the natural one, which is God's Window. You now have the gorge. you've got people that are doing bungee jumping, you've got zip lining, so in terms of private players in the space, they make sure that they harness those opportunities and build on what the environment is already giving to us. Things like the waterfalls, there's a big rainforest there. So we're saying, how can we take the environment as well as private players, the public, the government? How do we merge all of those to make sure that we invest together in a responsible way in infrastructure? So the benefits, as I said before, they spill over to non-tourism sectors, the retail, as well as agriculture, construction. Those are the benefits that get spilled over as a result of tourism. But there are some challenges that come with this. So we need to act very responsibly as tourism players in this space, where we don't have an overdependence on international tourists. I think what taught us a big lesson was COVID-19, where the international tourists were not able to come through, and the industry had to survive. So as responsible tourism players, we need to make sure that we also talk about domestic travel. How do we get people to get to know their country? I'd be interested to know how many people that are logged on here that know all the various provinces and have been to each and every one of them. So we are very fortunate in that we've got 9 provinces. Each has something to offer. So why not do the short lift to the domestic and local destinations that are there? So in terms of another challenge would be environmental degradation, where wildlife can be put at risk, where our coastlines can be put at risk if we're not engaging with those environments responsibly. So as tourism players, we need to make sure that we're aware of climate change, we're aware of pollution and other impediments to sustainability. And we must also just be aware that in some of these tourism spaces, the socioeconomic inequality is persisting. So something that we need to make sure that we uplift the communities in and around those beautiful spaces that we have, so that we all share in the benefit of tourism. And then there's, of course, the crime and safety concerns. We've heard of tourists being attacked on Table Mountain, tourists being attacked at the Kruger Park. So we need, tourists being attacked in some of the townships when they go into the township in some instances. So we this is a responsibility for all of us. So over and above the South African police, we need to also make sure that safety is key, and that we also pre-warn our visitors for areas that we can regard as hotspots, for them not to go there, or for us to make sure that they have the relevant protections when they are in that area. And also as communities to say, look, guys, crime is impeding our growth. How do we work together to rather fight the crime and get everyone to rather be involved in welcoming and creating safe spaces for our tourists and for this industry? So in terms of policy and other strategic frameworks that actually speak to ensuring that tourism remains the forefront in terms of being a contributor to the GDP, we do have the National Tourism Sector Strategy, which speaks to the 9 provinces and how tourism can be enhanced and developed in those spaces. We've got the Tourism Initiative Program, which is the TIP, as well as, of course, we are forever aligning to our SDGs, the 3 that are very, very close to our hearts in the tourism space is SDG 8, 12, and 13. So looking at the creation of decent work, so decent and sustainable work and economic growth, so that we make sure that the jobs that are created are not temporary jobs, but jobs that can sustain and support families on an ongoing basis. We've got the responsible consumption and production, so that whatever we take out of the environment, we make sure that we do so in a format that is responsible, and we're not over indulging and over consuming in those spaces. And then climate action, just to make sure that in terms of what's happening with climate change, that we are ready things like soil erosion. What do we do to protect our spaces against things like soil erosion? Also the animals, some people, the rhinos for one. How do we make sure that we protect the ecosystems and make sure that there's a balance in that space? Okay, and then there's some sustainable development strategies that are already in place, which make sure that we promote regional and domestic tourism. So not only looking at South Africa and looking at the countries that are on our borders and within the continent, and really speak to continental tourism development, have people come to the continent of Africa, not only come to South Africa, but go to Eswatini, go to Zimbabwe, Zambia. There's various places that one can go to over and above what you can get in South Africa. And more than anything, to invest in training and skills development. I think the good thing about tourism is that the one thing that you need is the aptitude and the willingness to want to get involved. And just about anyone can be taught and trained within this space. Even if you're a matriculant, not a matriculant, we can make sure that you get the relevant training and the skills that will support you and your growth in the tourism space. So we have a lot of learnerships, a lot of internships that exist. We take on a lot of learners, a lot of interns that come in and experience our hospitality environment for a good 12 months. And a lot of them we retain as staffers within these environments. So internships and learnerships very important. And also a lot of volunteers as well. And then with tourism, we also want to make sure that we embrace digital innovation and the green technologies. So digital innovation speaks to your social media platforms, making sure that people know about various spaces, the hidden gems that no one has really visited before. So making sure that tourists are aware of it, using the digital innovation for safety alerts for tourists, where to go, where not to go, where to find certain things, and it also to be able to be in a state where we strengthen private partnerships. I've mentioned that before, that the tourism space is ripe for partnering. So we need to make sure that as players in this industry, we look out for those partnerships. I can make an example with where we are in Graskop. We've looked at, there's a landing strip next to our hotel. We're saying to the municipality, how can we work together to grow a landing strip into a small airport environment? So a public-private partnership that can be done in that space. And there are many landing strips that can be developed into something bigger, if one is looking out for the opportunities to partner with the public sector to create those spaces and to make sure that we all benefit from the environment that we reside in. There are a couple of case study examples that I can share. There's a lot of community-based tourism that has sprung up throughout the country. I can speak to a few in Mpumalanga and the Eastern Cape, where the local communities have looked at opportunities that they can harness and get involved in and create into a sustainable business. We've got the township tourism in Soweto. I think we all know of Vilakazi Street. It's become a big talking point in some way where people would like to go. You've got the Apartheid Museum. That's also quite a big draw card for people coming to Gauteng. Then there's also ecotourism in the Western Cape, various examples. You've got examples in Knysna, and then also with collaboration with the arts, looking at offerings such as the Cape Town Jazz Festival, which has become a global attraction for art lovers and music lovers. So the same model can be duplicated across the provinces to make sure that you've got the Standard Bank festival. So there are various entertainment spaces and art collaborations that can be done together with the arts to create a successful case studies. And then just to, really get into the, concluding what I've been able to share with you now is that tourism is a vital enabler for economic growth and job creation. And for South Africa, it's something that's really been gifted to us, and we just need to make that happen for us as a country. The weather is there, the people are here, we've got friendly, willing people, and the spaces where people would like to visit are there. We just need to make sure that we collaborate together with those spaces to create the jobs and the opportunities. And all of this needs to be inclusive, it needs to be sustainable and resilient, so that it's creating a platform that's not only for today but for the future. And the collaboration across the sectors, as mentioned before, is key, because it's not only about visiting the tourist spots, it's also about saying, what can we offer beyond the hospitality space? The retail space can also be engaged, agriculture is engaged, as well as construction space is engaged. I would really like to thank everybody for their attention this morning. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to engage, take any questions, look at feedback with what I've been able to share with you today, any comments, any sharing, any ideas, and collaboration, future collaborations. So I've been very privileged to be able to share with you this morning. And more than anything, I would really like to be in a position those that have been able to join online. So Mahlodi, thank you so much for the opportunity, and also to Sam, thank you very much for the opportunity to share also the lived experience that we've had in the tourism sector. So very, very excited to have been able to share what I've been able to share. But I think for me, more than anything, is sustainability, because we're not in this tourism space for ourselves, but we're here for the future for our children and our children's children and those that follow after us. So thank you so much to both of you.
Incredible. Incredible, Nkateko. I've taken so much from that. And just looking at my notes, there was a point where I stopped writing because you've really given us insight into how everything is interlinked, and collaboration is such a key theme. And seeing how the sector that you are a forerunner in has that multiplier effect with positive socioeconomic flows into many other sectors. But one thing that really stuck out for me is how the tourism sector, particularly in the African context, plays a key role in the cultural preservation, and how cultural preservation is also a pillar of sustainable development. We cannot speak sustainability and the impact on our children and our children's children without speaking about our cultural heritage. And I enjoy that you've mentioned how these flows that you're seeing in your environment, from businesses that still operate using their indigenous knowledge systems, from their language to these rituals, to music, crafts, land practices, that all holds deep value for social, environmental, and economic sustainability. And it's a real tangible sustainability marker. And it's evident also in the African Agenda 2063 that echoes that Africa must have a strong cultural identity. So thank you so much for that. I want to lead our question and answer session. I don't want to miss out on my ability to ask this question. And I'd also like to invite our guests to pop their questions in the chat for Nkateko. But while they're popping their questions there, can you indulge me on this? And this is something that I've been seeing on social media. This gentrification effect of tourism. We enjoy the international inflows of economic prosperity on our economy, tourism brings development into our economy, but also inversely has that negative effect of sometimes displacing low income communities. And this is a big conversation that's happening on social media currently, especially on TikTok, where large numbers of international tourists will visit places like Cape Town, the Garden Route, or even township art and food hubs. And we'll see then a spike in accommodation prices, in local housing markets, in local amenities that everyday citizens need to have access to. So, can you talk to us about that? Have you been seeing that, and how is that playing out in your world?
Yeah, I think gentrification is a big problem. We actually need to be very respectful of the spaces in which we operate. So I think the environmental studies and research that gets done before building of new, new spaces, specifically in Cape Town, the municipality there is very, very active in making sure that, in terms of gentrification, that they do not displace communities that were there before the tourists came in. I mean, you only need to look at an example like Bokap in Cape Town. Those were the original inhabitants of that space, and they are slap bang in the middle of Cape Town. A lot of people feel that a lot can be done there. They need to be displaced. Let's build more hotels, more skyscrapers. But the municipality has been able to say no. This is not a space where we're going to basically destroy everything for the sake of just economic prosperity. You've got your District 6, that area of District 6 in Cape Town, also being protected. So I think as public sector players, we need to make sure that we are responsible when we do when we develop environments. I know everyone wants to be by the seashore, by the coastline. We need to make sure that's happening responsibly as well. So a lot of the responsibility and accountability does lie within our public sector players to make sure that we only allow what makes sense, so that the relevant research and surveying and information around preservation is in place to make sure that as we grow economically, the number of vehicles that we have, how do we get in and out of parks? The parks have rules. Like the Kruger National Park, you only allowed to be there up to a certain point. And that needs to be adhered to, because why? We are invading the space of the natural ecosystem. We need to allow the animals to also be able to own their space. You can't be driving around in the middle of the night in the Kruger Park. So we need to make sure that we also understand the rules that are put in place, and we respect them. So it's a collaborative, yet again, it's a collaborative working together, where we make sure that people are doing the right things in the right spaces, and that although the economic benefit is key and is needed, but it's not the only thing. We need to make sure
Mm,
that the economy and the environment work hand in hand, so that we all benefit, and that the ecosystem is kept in sync and balanced as a result of that. So we can't come
mm,
in there and invade spaces that we shouldn't be in, building shorelines that we should be building at. We really need to have those environmental specialists advising us and cautioning us on an ongoing basis. And more than anything, we need to listen to what's happening in the environment. When the municipality says don't build in this space, it's for a reason. And then to avoid things like now having flooding um, in spaces that we didn't anticipate. So we really need to be working together and educating each other on an ongoing basis.
mm. Sure, and that is really at the heart of what sustainability is. There's a quote that I often reference when speaking about sustainability, which is it was a quote by one of the Native Americans, Chief Seattle, who says that sustainability is not thinking about us inheriting land and resources from our predecessors, but it's actually about borrowing it to our children. So you're saying to us that we need to be responsible. We need to think about the entire ecosystem and not be selfish in our exploits. That way, we can have something to transfer to our future generations. That is all from the side of tourism and the impact of tourism on sustainability in the African context. Thank you so much, Nkateko, for an educational and eye-opening conversation that you've led with us this morning. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I really have enjoyed the session. So yeah, I look forward to also the other speakers that will follow, and also being able to get a copy of the full recording of the 3 days. I think there's some very important topics that have been engaged with throughout the session. So thank you very much, Matlodi, and thank you very much, Sam.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure. Thank you. Have an amazing day.